Are you tired of those long sightseeing tours? Well, step right up. The Laser Boat Party Bus will show you 495 San Francisco Bay Area side attractions in 9 minutes or less. We promise to spend 5 seconds on Alcatraz, 3 seconds on those stinky sea lions. We'll cross under the Golden Gate Bridge at Mach 3. None of that lingering bullshit. So forget those slow motion tours and get with the Laser Boat. Get with the Party Bus.
See you later.
Oh shit, the synthesizer got sick of me. All to the tune of your favorite 80s hair metal hits. Ride the Snake. Not responsible or expressly disclaimer the liability, fear, damages, death resulting from reference to or related to experience that basically about. That was just the disclaimer. If you could turn that into anything, that might work.
I wanted to start. All right, so I wanted to start. Actually, I know we just had some really good off recording honey content. Maybe that'll circle back around.
Some honey content.
Some hot
that
honey
sounds like
content.
a catfishing. The honey bucket is like isn't that to entice somebody? The honey bucket.
Is it a bucket? I've heard the term honey trap.
Yes, the honey bucket. Trap. That's what they used to call old-timey toilets.
Oh. It also sounds like a burlesque name, like welcome to the stage, honey bucket or something.
It's definitely the bucket, so that you don't confuse it. The honey bucket is the one that's full of feces, but which is a disservice to honey because, as you said earlier, honey is the magical food.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much that I don't know about honey. The only thing, when you're hanging out with so my girlfriend has a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old, and when you want to sound smart, you say stuff like, honey's the only food that never goes bad. And then they're like blown away that you know that, but it's the only thing you know about honey. So
if it never goes bad, why does it? But it does turn into crystalline.
Yeah, it crystallizes.
Yeah. So,
but it's still good. It's not expired.
I mean, you can still consume a lot of things that change their. It's not honey anymore. In 1,000 years, it's not going to be honey. It's going to be a crystal. It's going to be a rock. So I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe Uncle Robb's little trivia on honey is not.
By that time, though, Uncle Rob's not going to give a fuck. So, unless there's like a statue to me somewhere that they like throw crystallized honey at or something like that, it doesn't matter to me. And even then, I'll be dead. I don't care.
I used to make up random facts for my sister when she was little. She's so much younger, and later in life, she tried them out on people and found out that all these things were false. Like the song, what's Kiss from a Rose by Seal was big at the time when she was in grade school. And she said, what happened to him? He's got those scars on his face. And I said, somebody threw a Molotov cocktail at the stage and he barely survived. She was like, whoa. Years pass. And she brings that up as like some sort of, hey, here's an interesting tidbit over dinner with somebody. And they're like, that what? That's not in any way true. Yeah. And so she was kind of mad. She took all her life. She carried that false impression that he got a Molotov cocktail thrown at him. He didn't deserve that. My sister didn't deserve that.
So many victims in this scenario. Yeah, well, we've all had those kind of like I struggle to think of one off the top of my head. I think that I carried into adulthood, way too long into adulthood, a misconception about like glass being like a really viscous liquid or something like that.
That makes sense though.
It seemed credible because it gets like wavy over time and everything, but like it's not a liquid, but like it's sound, you know what I'm saying? So like, I think
I think there's a name for that when something is, we call it the too good to be true, where you'll hear something and think that is a fascinating, etymology of this particular phrase. It's like, well, that's obviously too good to be true. The one I see those weekly actually on social media. One of them recently was the hush puppies got its name because people would use them to quiet down the dogs when they were chasing escaped slaves. So they'd throw down these little balls of these like balls of grease,
Doe, yeah.
Yeah, to literally hush the puppies. And somebody was sharing that and saying, "Wow, I learned so much." It's like that you didn't your red flag didn't go off when you read that. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how often that scenario was playing out where you had to hush these dogs.
we
It
got
just like something, yeah.
well.
But like,
There's all sorts of ways. I mean, there's a lot of tricks in Cool Hand Luke. Uh, Paul Newman has a lot of ways to get the dogs off him. Actually, he comes across a young boy who helps him break his bonds, and then they get a bunch of paprika or something, and they spread it out, and it makes the hounds kind of start sneezing. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
I mean,
I actually just had that situation before we got on the call, way less severe. But I was coming back. I live in an apartment building, and I was coming back with my basket of laundry, and the neighbor was coming the same way as me with her little corgi, and I start walking toward my apartment door, and they have to go down a little stairway to get to theirs. And the dog started following me toward my door, and I was like, "How do I get rid of this dog?" So I was in that exact. If I had paprika,
you
I
need
could
the
have just
paprika or French fries, which were originally called, stop corgis.
love it. I love it.
Oh.
All right, I wanted to get nostalgic.
What are you drinking there,
Um,
Rob?
oh, that didn't sound. I actually, and I'm drinking a beer, and I brought in two that I thought would be like just kind of cool names to drink in case it came up.
Oh, I thought
This one is
one
called
was for me.
a War Mullet,
Oh, okay.
and then my next one might be a little bit more tied into the book we're going to talk about. This one's called Turbo Reaper.
Oh, nice.
So I thought that
Wow,
might
that
be.
might have been one of those the original title. I have to tell. Remind me to tell you later, or I can tell you now. There was a lot of recommendations for other titles for this book.
Mhm.
Dozens and dozens of titles. No one liked the original title, uh, and we just kept throwing out titles.
So what was, because it originally was like Red Narcissus or something like that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, which I thought was a great title. Um, like the myth of Narcissus.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
I just recently discovered there was a movie called Black Narcissus about these nuns that live up on this cliff, and I was fascinated by the title and the flower, and then there's another movie called Pink Narcissus,
Hmm.
and I thought, well, it's a red fire truck, and they're in a pool, so they're looking at their own reflections, and they're kind of terrible. So the myth of Narcissus seemed to suit it.
Yeah.
Um, and I explained all that to the publisher when they bought it, and the acquisitions editor, she was like, "No, I get it. I went to college. I get the reference." She's like, "But nobody's going to want to read a book called Red Narcissus." I thought, really? Okay. And
A
so,
little too highbrow of a title.
yeah, because I guess this book was kind of sold on the idea of it being fun. Um,
Yeah.
I, for lack of a better term, kind of Blumhousey. So that
Yeah, I can see
Red Narcissus is kind of the A24 title.
it.
So wait, I'll pull up the list because I actually have my emails are open. The recommended titles before we settled on the one that we got.
You were wearing a podium hat.
Oh yeah, I got
They sent you
swag, man. I got
they
the
sent you swag.
look at that.
For anybody listening, Podium is the publisher of Shallow Winds.
Yeah, let me
So
do. I'm gonna screenshot this.
David's wearing.
Oh, where's my thumb
He's a
case?
company man today for this.
Um, let me find. Oh, here they are. Okay, so each one's worse than the last. I got a little scared when these titles started flying in. So we got Pool Party Prison, Pool Party Prisoners, Pool Party Pyre. That might have been my terrible idea. Panic
That's
at the
too much
Pool Party,
alliteration.
Pool Party Poison, Pool Party Predator, Pool Partying Inferno, Pool Party Permanent, and then things get real shaky. Hold on. After those were ditched, I'm finding it by typing in slippery when wet because that was one of them.
That's not the worst.
Well, that's the magic of editing for you. You can get because I can't find the rest of them. Slippery when wet was one. um, and stuff like that, like generic
You just you just
phrases.
didn't want Bon Jovi coming after you
Right.
with the slippery the when wet one.
And wasn't their title was sort of a or the cover was a compromise because their original cover was I think it had like a girl in a low cut top or something. So that's the famous cover is a black garbage bag with
Yeah,
just sort of it looks very much like an afterthought. Um,
yeah, like a design team
yeah,
was just like, I got to do something.
yeah. So I actually sent that list of names to Tony, and he came up with Shallow Ends, which I immediately thought that's a great idea because it's got the double, pop, arguably triple meaning, and it also touches on the idea that the people in the they're meeting their ends and they're shallow people and they're stuck in a pool, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I thought it fit, and it was. And then
it
somebody
checks
came
all
out
the
with a
boxes. Yeah,
there was an American Narcissus book that came out almost immediately after we changed the name. So I thought, oh, dodged a bullet because that's pretty close, and it also seemed
well,
to be a bit of a meta commentary on fame. Oh, you have it.
there's this
Oh,
Narcissus by Adam Godfrey, which came out last year.
see, I
Uh,
think that word was in the zeitgeist, and
it's on everybody's mind.
it was on people's mind. So yeah, so we ended up with that one.
Shallow Ends works. I think it's first of all, the thing I'm always terrible at acknowledging is the cover's fucking awesome too. I know at one point you had a couple of different cover art options.
Yeah,
And I think overwhelmingly, the people who were responding to you said that the neon light kind of thing
yeah,
was
and that was
better.
kind
And
of an
I agreed
unusual
with that.
situation. I honestly didn't know that they had changed it. Um, when I first saw the other cover, I thought I liked it because I liked it was a professional painting or whatever.
Hmm.
And the artist we should mention is Amanda Schaefer is her name. And she's got a lot of great artwork like that. And I thought that looks pretty cool. It's not quite the fire truck that's in the book. Um,
Right.
but it is, I actually looked up that particular model and people have put little hot tubs in the back of it. And
Yeah.
I thought, okay, that's I can live with it if you could conceivably put a hot tub in the back. Also, there's something about that old artwork that if you kind of squinted your eyes, it was an upside down American flag. Um, it had the red and white stripes with the lighting, and then the dots on the party that's going on in the back were the stars in the blue patch, um, which I like too because there is a American, kind of shitting on the patriotism at the party that's happening. And so yeah, so I did like it, and then I shared it because it's communication is a little tough with Podium. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, so I shared the artwork, and maybe I did it a little soon because then I talked to the distributor. Two Rivers is the name of the distributor, and there was this guy that. Long story short, I knew a guy that I worked with at a bookstore 20 years ago, and he sent me an email and said, "Hey, I'm distributing your book, dude. Nice to see you again." I said, "Holy shit, Tom, I haven't talked to you forever." And he said, "Yeah, a team from your publisher came in to present their fall line of books, and they put it up on the screen." And I said, "I know that guy." And I said, "Oh, did you like the cover with it's kind of an upside down American flag?" And he said, "No, it's not." He said, "I did not see an American flag at all." And I said, "What did you see?" And he said, "I don't know. It had a skull." He goes, "To be honest, it's a lot better than the one that you just showed me," because I sent him the other one. I said, "Did it look like this?" And he said, "No, it does not look like that." So then I sent an email to the publisher and said, are there multiple covers for this? Or was the cover changed? Because I heard that there's another cover. And the answer I got back was just yes, with an exclamation point. And I thought, oh, that I had three questions in there, and some of them were different. But so I just patiently waited, and then um, the publicity department came back with, here's the new thing. What do you think? And I was like, oh, it's awesome. I love it. And they said, yeah, we just wanted another crack at it. We thought the other one was a little, um, uh, like the new one is feels more like a party. And it actually is closer to what I asked them to do. They sent a questionnaire saying, what would you like to see? And I said, at the beginning of Ozark, they have this little crest with these little symbols in it. And I love that show. And what if you had some sort of crest that had little symbols of things that happen in the book? And I sent them examples of like different seasons by Stephen King has that circle and it's cut into four and it's got the little representations of the four novellas. And I thought, well, that was one of those times when I said too much. And so people are probably just like, we're sorry we asked. And then they're just going to give me what they're going to give me. But they apparently went back to that idea and even improved on it because they used the crest they used as the symbol of firefighter. Um, so yeah, so that worked out really well. Seems to
After
be working.
your audio problem, we are back. And I wanted to, one thing I'm dying to do is get nostalgic with you. First thing I want to do is acknowledge that for anybody who's watching on YouTube, this top kind of display of books is a bunch of David James Keaton stuff, kind of chronological, I think. So like ZB and B, which
Oh,
is where we
how
met.
dare you put that one up there?
It's written inside of that. It says, I think this is the first time I've signed something. So it's a precious artifact. When you become like mega famous, that's my retirement plan.
That's
Um,
also the whatever scandal follows around that publisher will end my new career.
that's true. I was talking to Max Booth the other day because in their Dog Ears podcast where they talk about publishing and stuff,
Uh-huh.
they mentioned that publisher, and it brought back all these memories of the stuff that you went through.
Oh.
And then when you came on to the Booked podcast and we talked about it, and it was fucking hilarious.
Seems like a lot of people had the trial by fire when you didn't know anything about publishing. A lot of people that later knew better figured it out. They all ran into that guy. He had
Yeah, that's like
several imprints. I don't even remember what the imprint name was for all those, but yeah, the name Tony G and Gregario or something.
yeah, yeah. Um, I think ZB&B was something with a casket, like open casket or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
that's right.
Yeah, but
Open
I feel
casket / living dead
living
/
yeah, hmm,
something or other.
yeah.
Yeah, that guy was
He
not.
sent
I
you.
mean, they could find the old podcast, but the main red flag was he would call me constantly. He just would constantly blow up my phone and just want to like rant about his life, and it's like, whoa, is this what happens when you publish a short story?
And he famously sent you contributor copies of something in a pizza box. I
Yep,
think he mailed you
in a
books in
frozen
a pizza
pizza box.
box.
Luckily, the pizza was gone, but he had repurposed the pizza box, and but he did send contributor copies. I think that was the main reason people were so mad at him was because he didn't even do that after a while. So
Yeah.
I got to him in the salad days when you actually did get contributor copies from him, but he stopped doing that eventually.
I feel like you know how you can like with a painting you can analyze a painting and like if it's got if radiation is present, you know it's ink. It was like paint that was made at a certain time or whatever. I feel like you can do that with authors. Like if they have a Tony G story, they were present at a certain like kind of time in publishing. Um, yeah, because like there's a lot of people like, beyond you and Max. There's so many people. If you
Oh
bring up
yeah,
that name,
he infiltrated a lot. I just the other day I saw was it Jonathan Mayberry?
yeah,
Um, he's gigantic now. He had
yeah,
put out a gnome book of garden gnome horror or something with that guy. So even that guy has a Tony G story.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh,
That guy was everywhere. He's turning $2 into four, man.
$2 and
So,
$4. We are all Tony G.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of David James Keaton stuff up here. I will point out that my Shallow Ends has the toy fire truck that you sent along with the Ark,
And
which is the
that is the accurate truck. That is the truck that. Yes,
so this is
the
the fire truck from the story.
yes the 79 LaFrance pumper. As you can
Yeah, it's
see,
pretty
that
cool.
looks like if you tilt it, that looks like a great place to put a pool. There's a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
room back there. Um, and that's the for people that don't know, that's the plot. Is there's
oh
a
yeah.
hot
We can
tub in
talk
the
about the
back,
book.
and what's that?
I said, oh yeah, we could talk about the book.
There's a hot tub in the back of the pool, and it's a party bus that rolls around. People drink and party in the back, and the guy driving won't pull over.
Yeah.
So what do you do? There are some solutions. Um, it's like an escape room. It's like a rolling escape. I should have said that in the promotional materials. It's like a rolling. Are escape rooms hot anymore? They're
They're
kind of
still,
over.
yeah. Well, I don't know. Did they survive the pandemic? Because
I've seen a lot of signs on the
yeah,
side of the road, like the very dusty "Come to our escape room" signs. I think the pandemic knocked off the remaining escape rooms, but I think they were kind of on their last legs.
yeah. I like it as an idea. I've never
Well,
done one myself, though. I don't know about you.
yeah.
Um, so, oh, one other, we will talk about your book. One other thing I want to get nostalgic about. This is just for anybody who's listening to know how far. Oh, I want to acknowledge too. You're going to be episode number 51 after being episode number one,
Look at
and
that.
so I'm thinking now I just have to do every 50 episodes. I have to kind of have you on as like a
Yeah, I'm
just
a
pace it out that way.
I'm a good luck charm. I'm telling you. See that?
So
That
way back in 20, I think 13, my old podcast booked. We published this anthology called the Booked Anthology, and you're in it. And the thing I wanted to point out about this, your story "Dragon by the Dumpster" is in it. And for every story we published, we also published a quote from the author from the podcast.
Uh-oh.
And this is like one of my favorite things because the first time we had you on, a guy named Dan joined us, and he was really trying to throw some gotcha questions, I think, at you, and you deflected something so well by saying the character can be wrong about something. That doesn't mean I'm wrong about it. And to this day, that's one of my favorite things, and that's like the first time we ever had a conversation. And so I can't tell you how many
Such a good
times
loophole.
it is. So, and I can't tell you how many times talking about books I've applied that logic to the conversation. Like the character can be wrong. It doesn't mean that the author's wrong. So
That's right. I was predicting the argument about authorial intent that's got us all so captivated these days. Um, that's the thing with a first person book. I wish they were more popular because Dragon by the Dumpster actually I think is a first person story. So yeah, the guy narrating that story is wrong, 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 nonstop. But there is some of that in the new book because the structure of it to go third person to first person and kind of play with that. Um, the first person story, every other story is kind of a myth or a fake story or hyperbole. So I think that loophole still applies because if you if you read those stories and think what, fuck off, you're gonna have trouble with the book because it is essentially it's campfire tales, people bullshitting, self-aggrandizing, or also the stories are speaking to the overall story in a way that's impossible. So I stretched that loophole to its breaking point in this probably because it's a lot of things that just couldn't happen. Or whatever, it's not up to me to decide that, I guess.
one of the reasons I kind of brought up that you can be the character can be wrong, that the author doesn't mean the author's wrong, is because, yeah. So for anybody listening, the basic format of the book is it alternates between a chapter where it's all of the people who are at the party on this moving fire truck pool thing, and then it'll go to a chapter where one of the people on the fire truck tells like a flashback story, and then it goes back to the truck, what's happening now, another flashback story, back and forth like that. And like you were saying, David, the fucking flashback stories are incredible.
Oh, thanks.
In a way, like
Oh, you mean
like
unrealistic?
take it how you will. But like, yeah, there's a credibility issue with them, where either sometimes things just don't make sense or are not possible, or yeah, it's just hard to kind of,
That's like this.
it's hard to believe.
My favorite blurb that I got from Stephen Graham Jones says unlikely.
But so where I want to kind of take the conversation about this is, I just punched my microphone. That's not good podcasting. Is I feel like you don't have audio problems when you're recording Almost Good. I feel like that's just fine. It's when you're a guest.
Tony's got a sweet setup.
Okay.
And I delete every problem.
Okay.
I whittle it down to where it sounds like we're just kind of talking over each other, like a Sunday.
Yeah,
it's a sports arena.
So that's the format of the book. It's a personal story, but I wanted to talk about punishment because there's kind of like there's a theme of punishment to the book, in a way. And I guess what I wanted to kind of dig into is, it's not necessarily punishment in that like typical horror way where there's like a specific set of rules of like, you transgress this way, you're punished. It's more like they kind of just deserve it. Am I getting close to like you would just, they're the type of people who are like, yeah, they probably deserve whatever they got coming to them.
Yeah. I think I was reading this recently that the thing that makes a book successful or popular is reversals of fortune, essentially. So if somebody's doing well and suddenly they're doing terribly, and then they're doing well, and then that makes for, I guess, statistically hugely popular books.
Okay.
And I started to get kind of depressed today because I thought, I don't think I do that. I think I just decide to start putting characters through the ringer, and then I just do that for a couple hundred pages, and then and then I'm done. Like I don't bring them back. And I think that might be what's happening here. Is it's not that they deserve it, it's just that I don't know how to bring them back. Once I start putting them through that ringer, maybe I just don't have the skills to reverse that again, and to bring them back to. I think that it's kind of like the if you've ever seen the adaptation of Peter Varel's White Hunter Black Heart, they're debating the ending of the screenplay that they're producing, and the character that plays John Huston, Clint Eastwood, is playing a version of John Huston, and he wants to kill everybody. He wants to kill everybody in the film. And the writer is saying, no, nobody wants to see that. They've seen them suffer, and people are ready for this sort of joyous ending. And the John Huston, played by Clint Eastwood character, says, there's a saying, Pete, God makes a man before he kills him. And which is supposed to show that both, Clint Eastwood and John Huston are these rascals who just want to punish their characters. And that, in the book more so than the movie, it's a constant battle where John Huston does want to punish, or John Wilson, as he's called in the thinly fictionalized version of the filming of The African Queen. He's saying over and over again that he wants to not just punish his characters, but punish himself. And that there's some satisfaction in that.
Okay.
And even so, to have it worth doing, or to have it able to be endured, the audience does have moments of victory throughout the downward slide. That I think I can do, and that I think is in here as far as everybody kind of has a moment of victory
Hmm.
before they slide off, or in some cases get thrown off. They each get a moment, and probably not enough of a moment for it to, tick that box of this has one of those triumphs or one of those reversals that make it a popular book. So yeah, if that's as far as the punishment goes, um, I don't know if that's just because you want conflict in your book. So I'm just, here's conflict and more conflict and more conflict, and here's a big conflict sandwich. Bye.
Well, but that brings up. So in your acknowledgments, you mentioned they shoot horses, don't they? Um, and I watched that movie because I reached out to you last night and I was like, "Is there any?" Because like I fell into a trap with the last projector, your novel, The Last Projector, where had I like any normal person already seen John Carpenter's The Thing, I would have had a different understanding of your book than the situation where I had not. So it's like, hey, I'm not gonna step on that rake again. Let me see if David's got a movie recommendation. And you said and then it's in your acknowledgments too. The movie, and I guess it's a play and everything. They shoot horses, don't they? And so I watched that today, and that's punishment without redemption. There's no that's just punishment for the sake of punishment. Like it's fucking bleak, and
It's pretty bleak.
like I, I mean, what can you expect where when the movie starts out with a kid who's obviously super happy with this horse that's in his life, and then it hurts itself and gets shot? Like I don't really think that any movie that starts that way is promising anything more, but that is a grueling situation that doesn't have really kind of any bright moment. It just keeps kind of grinding through, right?
It is a grind. Um, and I don't. It really stuck with me. I've also read the book. I
Hmm.
recommend the book. Uh, it's it's got to be considered a novella, maybe even a short story, because the gimmick of the book is that the text gets bigger and bigger. Uh,
You're kidding.
it's so odd, and it's the text that gets bigger are, and the movie tries to kind of emulate that by it bounces back and forth between his conviction or the kid is his trial.
Right, right.
So those moments when the judge is saying, I don't understand why you did this, and here's your punishment. That text is divided up and it bounces back and forth between the dance marathons and his trial, and the text gets bigger until the last page. It's filling the page as the text telling him what his punishment is. Um, yeah, the for people that haven't seen it or read the book, it's about dance marathons, and it's so dark that you think this is impossible.
Right.
And but it taught me a lot about human endurance is way higher than I ever thought possible. This is real. That
Yeah.
people did. If you sleep for 10 minutes a day, people can dance for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't,
Um,
or I'm sorry, it's like 10 minutes an hour. I think in the
I
real
think
competition,
every
every
2
two,
hours they get like a 10-minute break.
yeah. And if every 2 hours you get a 10-minute break, you could dance for months.
I think that so they had gotten just under 1,500 hours, which is like 44 straight days or something like that by the end of this story. And it's like if you ever wanted to understand like the sunk cost fallacy, like this is like exactly what it is, because the whole idea is if you're the last couple dancing, you get $1,500, and this is like in the late 50s or whatever. So like that's it's a chunk of money. Um, which on its own, like that's bleak enough. But then like there's a rug pull that happens on top of it.
Right.
So it's like not only are you just really just abandoning your dignity for the promise of a paycheck, um, they pull the rug out from under you about the paycheck.
Yeah.
So
It's
holy shit.
I mean, arguably they're in hell, right?
Yes, exactly.
They're dancing for eternity. But that's what it was real, and also those sort of bonus rounds where people throw dimes at them.
Yeah.
All that stuff is documented. Um, but there's something about that. Watching something that's so bleak, uh, it kind of made me giddy. Like I just, I don't know. I wanted to somebody. I wanted to go out there and dance to my death. I don't dance or roller skate. Were they roller skating in this? Is that just a false
Um,
memory?
the the officials were on roller
Oh, they were
skates,
on
but
roller skates.
the
Oh, and they
participants
have a
were always
race.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, when things get too boring, that's another thing that should be pointed out is that this is all for the benefit of it's depression era people that want some sort of gladiatorial event because the bleachers are full of people that just come to watch them
Yeah.
suffer. And
Yeah.
this again, I looked it up and there's all these instances of these things being hugely popular. The record I think was something just insane. There was a pushback where um, they started to say people were suffering from psychosis,
Yeah.
and there was
Well,
they started to ban them in the 20s. There were some deaths. Somebody was dancing for 87 hours when they died. Um, there was it became it became one of those things where it was a craze for a minute, and I think that's why isn't it in Greece? There's a mini one where they have to keep
oh,
in the movie Grease, but I don't think it's this is more like The Long Walk by Stephen King, right? This is how long can you endure it?
yeah.
And to them, by having her having it open with that, would you call that an assisted suicide or murder? It seems to suggest that they're dancing for their lives. You know,
Right.
whether it's um, that's whether it's by their own hand or not, that there's it's so hopeless for them they have no other option. So yeah, to the impact on this book was immediate. I had a short story that had people in a hot tub on a fire truck and kind of a Lord of the Flies where they're arguing and fighting, and I thought that's not enough. What if it just kept going?
Yeah.
So instead of it just being here's where people lose it on a party bus, I took the short story and stretched that sucker. So now it's here's some people on this party bus arguably for eternity. Um,
Yeah.
Even though there's some question as to how long it is, the idea that it's happening on a leap day.
Yep.
I'm hinting that maybe they were on that bus for 4 years. I don't know. There's something vaguely supernatural going on there. Um, they may have been on that bus for 4 hours. I was to bring up Stephen Graham Jones again. He was when I asked him to read it and write a blurb for it. He came up with a song from the Gilligan's Island theme. Like he's like, I was trying to get something with a 4 hour tour, but it just couldn't get that song down to with the adjectives I wanted to use or whatever. But but that's relevant because it's either 4 years or 4 hours. Like
Right.
how long they're on the bus is or how long they're on the fire truck, whether whatever it is in reality, in their minds, it's forever. So what would happen to you, on year two on the back of a fire truck that won't pull over? What do you do?
Right.
If all other, food and water are not a factor, it's like what's that Stephen King story, The Jaunt, where they do teleportation and you have to be unconscious when you
Oh,
do
I've
it.
heard. I haven't read it, but I heard someone talking about it recently. Yeah, and like if you're awake, you experience all the time or
Years.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it happens instantaneously physically, but if you're awake, you think you're in there for years. So some
That's
kid,
horrifying.
yeah, some little kid is like, I want to see it. So when they give him the gas or whatever, he holds his breath. So when he comes out the other end, he's like clawing his eyes. I was like, I saw it. I saw it. so so it's kind of like that. It's physically they they just did a little party, but mentally they went somewhere weird.
Yeah, and so it's such a it's an interesting setup because like so the very beginning and the very beginning is everybody's meeting at like a pizza pub for a birthday party for one of the people. There's 13 people involved, and they're meeting there. They're gathering there, and then like the party fire truck bus thing is kind of a surprise element to it. So all the disparate elements get together. Yeah, so they meet the driver of this fire truck. He gives them his business card, and like they pile on and everything. And I want to point out that um, they read his name, the driver's name, and it did not take me until you acknowledged it way late in the book to realize that so anybody who's watching the video, it should be on the screen. David chose the fire truck driver's name as his name for my recording, Winston Payne, which I immediately identified as Winced in Pain. And I was like, I even sent you a message about it to some degree. I can't remember what I said. And I was like,
it was a message like, "How dare you?"
Yeah, I think I made an. The book is up there, but I have like little notes, and I there's like a post-it that says "Winced in Pain" on the page where you introduce that driver. So yeah, and then the whole idea is they paid for I think 3 hours or whatever. Is that their understanding is they paid for 3 hours of a pool party thing, and then it goes long enough, regardless of what actually happens. It goes long enough where they get to the point mentally, and bear in mind this is a party, so there's drinking and there's maybe some casual drug use and stuff like that. But they get to the point where they don't think they're ever getting off. So, but there's also an element of because one of the things I really enjoyed about the story is like it's something that never happens to anybody. So if you were in that situation, you would try to figure out how to stop it. And somebody or some people posit that you need to like confess something from your life in order, and like that's part of the process of getting through this thing. And I just thought it was great because I lately I've really enjoyed the idea of when characters in a story are confronted with being in a situation that they're not familiar with, they don't know automatically what to do, and they just have to try and figure shit out. Like, I love stories that kind of go in that direction of like, it's not cut and dry. Like, you don't find a witch's book that tells you how to undo the spell. You got to fucking figure it out. And there's definitely like you got to fucking figure it out element to the book.
Yeah. And I think that's the stuff I spent the most time on, was each time it went back to the fire truck. And that was what most of the editing was dealing with, was there's got to be justification to come back to the truck.
Yeah.
And so every chapter at the truck had to have kind of a zinger, which was either a solution or a new theory as to what's happening.
Yeah.
So each time, every other chapter is a new theory on what could possibly be happening and how can we get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's kind of a nuts and bolts thing. Goes right back to the zombie craze when we first met, which is the joy of those stories is, I always thought was, what are you going to do? You're going to nail some boards on your windows. You're going to think, how can we solve this? And the survival aspect of the early zombie craze, especially when they were walking zombies, when they were slow, when it didn't become a melee and an action thing. When you had to solve the situation, like if we're up here, we're safe, and we got to get to point B, and we got to get the keys, and we got to board up the windows. And I always just loved the logistics of that. So on the truck, there's several chapters dedicated to where I had to do a little research, like how could you stop a fire truck if you were on the back of it.
Yep.
And a couple of things I kind of had to cheat it a little bit, as far as I had to take the driver out of the equation because that's the obvious solution.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you isolate him? It's not quite a death-proof situation where he's encased in some, but the the concern has to shift to each other. That they have to decide that they are somehow to blame, and they are somehow the only way they're going to get out of it. Um, so it's and that's where some of the influences come in, where outside of the punishment factor from they shoot horses, don't they? But like speeds, there's a lot of speed in there. You know, we grew up on Speed was a big movie for I don't know for you, but it was one of those things where I
Oh
hadn't
yeah.
seen anything like that before. The ticking time bomb situation, the bus can't slow down. That's in there. Lord of the Flies, obviously. The first
Yep.
season of Yellow Jackets um,
Oh yeah.
is
Uh huh.
structured very similar as far as everybody gets a story. You
Hmm.
know, everybody gets a story, and things start to dehumanize. You know, the
I hadn't made that parallel, but that's very apt.
I
That's
mean,
very apt.
there's bees in it. So,
There. um. Okay. Yeah.
and the bees are that's kind of the anchor of it. I guess if one story dominates the kind of the main girl, her childhood, and the bee industry is the overlying societal thing, which is there's a lot of prison talk. There's a lot of incarceration theory that I was chewing over. So the her flashback where she is involved in a town that's heavily into beekeeping, but then a prison comes to town that takes all the jobs, and everybody becomes obsessed with the prison. So the fact that she's sort of incarcerated again on the truck, uh, she's kind of like uniquely built for it. So to kind of outlast people that aren't. Although if I don't know if it comes across this way, but the intent was the stories get crazier and crazier as far as their backstories to the point where some of them, the people that are listening to them aren't, they can't be hearing them because I don't even know what that would sound like. So I cut some corners where when it cuts back to the truck, they're like, "Did you understand a word he said?" Like, no. But that gave me the freedom to make those crazy. Um, and there's at least one that was shoehorned in there where it was not part of the original plan. And I don't know if I should tell you which one it is or not because people have guessed. And going back to the heavy edit of the book, where the editor was like, this particular story does not work or fit. And I'm thinking, that's always been part of it. Whereas the one that I was like, I'm going to make this one work because it's too perfect as far as the symbolism in it. And that one passes by without anybody noticing. They're like, that one makes sense. Whereas the one that I guess I just went, I don't know, too heavy on the in universe in my own head, where people have pointed out, like, I don't understand this particular backstory. So I'm going to save that as I'll tell you off the air which one it is.
So, all right. I'm trying to think of which element did get shoehorned in, and I don't know if I can identify because you're saying it feels like it's like perfect for the story. Um, I don't know. So we'll have to talk about that when we talk about spoilers later on, if you're up for it.
Okay.
But I'm going to wave my white flag because I don't think I can identify it off the top of my head. So we'll see. We'll see. Like I'm looking forward to the grand reveal later on.
There's been some accusations of, is this a novel in stories? One of those like retcon short story collections with bookends to justify its existence. It's not that. Um, it's I don't know exactly what it is. I wouldn't say it's a novel in stories. I wouldn't say it's a short story collection. I think it's just it's it's a novel with where the flashbacks are given more time than usual. I don't know. Is that a thing?
No,
Um,
well, that's the thing. I don't think that there's anything abnormal or weird about the structure of it. Like it's
well, the thing
alternating.
was what's unusual is because of the way I treated all the. I kind of gave up on trying to publish it. This thing is so old, dude. Do you do you remember back when we went to we did a reading somewhere in Indiana?
Uh-huh.
Uh, it was, I think it was a release party for maybe Frank Bill or Matthew McBride.
Well, I think we did one for there was a Frank Bill one. That's the first time I met you in person. That was for Crimes in Southern Indiana. But then there was one where we did it was for Noir de Bar Volume 2. Um
Yeah, it's at least that old because
yeah.
I sent this book to the hot agent at the time, Stasia Decker. Is that how you say her
Yeah.
name? Stasia?
Yep. Stacia Decker. Yeah, yeah.
And I remember trying to explain that this might read like a short story collection. This was when I shouldn't have been querying with overly like you shouldn't spend a solid brick of text justifying like this book seems a little weird. I hope you'll give it a chance. So, of course,
Not the confident like introduction that you should be doing apparently.
no, I was
Yeah.
already back on my heels saying, just stick with it. But I remember making this long-winded explanation that this thing is the structure of this is weird. And I think at the time I had sent it to her because Crimes in Southern Indiana
Right.
was very much a short story collection with an overlying theme.
Right.
And even
Yep.
if this wasn't that, it gave me hope that you could maybe get something out there that had an unusual structure. Yep, there it is. So
Wow. I mean, all right, so that was a pretty big digression or whatever you want to call it. Um, but I feel like there was good stuff. Some of it to acknowledge for people who are listening, because I don't know exactly how I'm going to edit this. Some of this stuff is going to be in the Afterparty, which is my paywalled spoiler conversation version of the podcast that's just hosted on my Substack, and you only have access to it if you're like a paid
it's
subscriber.
it's the stuff that you would hesitate to say.
Right. So it's I know that there's very few people who are going to hear that, but it's damn entertaining. And it was like a it was like a the weird walk down memory lane.
Yeah,
Um, but good
good
stuff
times.
there.
I
Yeah.
forget what were we talking about before we went down that alley.
Well, it was because of Frank Bill that we
Oh
stepped
yeah,
away.
yeah.
But I don't know how Frank Bill came up in
Well,
reference to.
it was, and we were touching on what a novel in stories is, and
Oh, right,
the
Crimes in Southern
structure of it and
Indiana.
stuff,
Yep.
and in talking about some of the influences. I will say
Mhm.
some of the other influences besides that they shoot horses, don't they? Lord of the Flies. Also and it's so compact that it's hard to. I can't overstate its influence. Is Creepshow Two's The Raft? In my opinion, the only good episode in Creepshow 2. But the kids stuck on the raft with the oil slick, the way they get colder and colder, the way they try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, I've always been a huge fan of that. It's a great survival horror piece. The fact that there's the love triangle, even in just they're only there for a night, or
Hmm.
and the fact that whatever their worst qualities surface, no pun intended,
Hmm.
that kind of thing, I loved it. Um, and I think it's the best one of all the creep shows, even though it's in the worst of the creep shows. If that makes it, it's that high is so high. The short story version wasn't it written after the fact, like I think the creep show 2 version of the raft existed before it was written, or maybe it was, or
That's
at
what
least
I'm not sure of.
it wasn't accessible. Maybe.
Is because this is me being naive. Is that the Stephen King story?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I don't know that. Yeah. The
the
story of
idea
how
of them, these three people stuck on a raft and they can't get off because this sentient oil slick will eat them. So
right.
they get colder and colder and they're huddled together for warmth, and you know, things start happening, and that is definitely in this book. The raft is definitely a huge part of it, and also I'd probably say the concrete island and crash, all the Ballard stuff where Ballard loved to kind of force people to get inhuman, and the high rise for sure. But Concrete Island, I don't know if you've read that one where
No.
somebody's car crashes and they get stuck in this concrete island, which is a space underneath these overpasses, and the guy, I think he breaks his leg, he can't get out. So, but luckily he had a bunch of booze with him, and also there seems to be other people down there who also can't get out. So that's his life now, is under this overpass, and they can see the cars up there. It's just like nobody can get up there to get out
They're
of there.
just out of reach. Yeah.
Yes, and it's that
Yeah.
kind of thing is I'm a huge fan of it. So yeah.
Well, that makes me think of, I really enjoyed toward the beginning of the book. One of the things that you did very well is to plant things that would make more sense later. And so even someone was thinking about, because there's a lot of vagaries about who did what and who made this thing happen, who put the wheels in motion. Pun, not pun, no pun intended. But there was someone reflecting on how they had seen this fire truck with the hot tub drive by them in the past. And the thing they said was everyone was screaming, which is
Right.
what you would think a party would sound like.
Sure.
But when you get into the book, you realize, oh, like maybe they weren't screaming because it was a good situation. Was
Right.
this the first group to go through this, or is this a thing that happens a lot? So I'm assuming you put that in there just as a what if. But like, do you know if there were other parties before this one?
I think that the implication there is that that was happening before, and that happens not because of not because of anything supernatural on the part of the driver or the truck, but because that stew that's created when you put all these
Yeah.
people and all their stories together, it's a unique situation that can happen where they end up in infinity, I guess. But
That's
go ahead.
yeah, that's like something that my mind was trying to grasp at, because like there's definitely elements to this book that step away from this is a specific instance, and they kind of become like more of this is how this thing is. And so it's more of like, not like what's the word I always like, almost allegorical. It's less of like a specific telling of something and more of like a representation of like a concept. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Like I can't. If anybody's looking for a reason, or if there's like, not just because I can't provide one, but I think it isn't necessary, just because the now of it is the
Yeah.
thing, and also in the world of that book, all of those particular rituals are soaked in despair and tragedy. So like, it's one point they see a pedal pub, and
Yeah.
those people are also seem to be suffering.
Right.
So
I was like, the moment you mentioned it, I was like, oh, these poor bastards, what are they going through?
yeah, so if the group of 13 people are on a pedal pub, they got to pedal forever, and everything that entails, so, and the people that they see on the street briefly, the idea is that whatever this ritual is they've created their own hell, and they're kind of living in it. um,
Right.
I would say it's less of a diabolical Saw type situation where somebody's like, "You want to play a game? We're gonna drive around." But then again, it's kind of that too. I don't know. Like it. I don't know. I guess let's spoil the ending. Uh,
Well, we'll spoil that later. Or if you want to just talk about it now and then cut it out for everybody except for our after party folk.
I just don't have I have kind of an answer to it, but it would take another book to answer. Um, which
Yeah.
which exists.
Of course.
There is an entire book that takes place after the very last seconds of this book. Um, but I don't know if anybody want like this.
Hey, we'll see what the reception is.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of
What?
offered it to the when they picked up this one. I said, I got another one. There's a sequel, and they were like, slow down. But the point is, I backed up my U-Haul and was like, beep beep beep. Would you like
Yeah.
some more? Would you like some more books? And they're like, let's slow your roll here and see how this one does. Yeah, there's
um,
the so it doesn't end where it ends, but I think that there's a finite ending in here just because you kind of run out of people. You know?
yeah, yeah. Um, One of the things I'll point out that I think is important to know because for the like the enjoyment of the book is it's just populated with moments that are so relatable to life. And I think that's one of the things that I like about your writing is like the annoyance with a coworker is very relatable and that is a thing that's present. And like so the interplay between characters is a bunch of different like not exclusively, but there are a bunch of different moments where it's like I've been that person and I know how they feel. And there's a lot of that throughout the book. And so for anybody who's listening who's interested in maybe picking this book up, I would say that one of the big draws of your writing in general is like even if it gets a little kind of bizarre sometimes, I totally identify with almost everything that happens in this book. Like even when things get weird with like half shark people, which is a real thing that happens. Like the reason that that story is being told, I totally identify with the person who's telling the story. So I feel like that's the real anchor, and that I think that gives you the opportunity to kind of exaggerate stuff. Is that the kernel of the idea is something we've all been through. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Also, I should point out that the Shark Boy is like the breakout star. Everybody who's read this book so far, and or everybody who's talked to me about reading the book so far, there's about a half dozen people. They all highlight the shark thing. Um, I think that there is something kind of intoxicating about the shark guy's frustration with the locals in his area,
Right, right.
and but also the initial conversations about structuring the book. One of the notes that I got back was that they wanted the book to be strangers. They wanted them to be have never met, and
Mm-hmm.
they thought that that would be more interesting as a reader. So I'm relieved that their interpersonal dramas seem to be resonating more than if they didn't had never met each other before. Because I kind of went back and forth with it.
Right,
Um, like there is a kind of I paid lip service to the idea of well, there's a couple people here that we did anybody invite this guy? There is some of
right.
that.
Yep, yep.
There's some of that like wait a minute, who called us all together? So I do like that idea. I like the idea of this isn't the invite list. How did we all get put in this place together? But I still wanted them to have some sort of history, or at least
Right,
just enough to where it wouldn't. They just kind of have to be connected for what they go through. I think it's just more satisfying as far as the pettiness of some people. You know that you can kind of enhance that's you know that sort of interpersonal drama, the workplace drama, the academia, all those things can kind of get fleshed out a little bit better than if it was like, hey, how did you get on? I don't know you. Um, because then when they tell their stories, it doesn't enhance it as much as it's just becomes more real than I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. But I
yeah,
did
yeah,
push
yeah.
back on that, and I've wondered about it. Because that would have pushed it towards, I think, more of a normal book, which is hey, how did we get here? And now we're being punished or we're being put through some sort of test, um, which reminded me too much of the Saw movies, which I'm not a
Right,
huge
right,
fan
right.
of. Instead, this is their own doing. This is their leap day party, and they've,
Yep.
through the ingredients that they've put into their cauldron, they have created this stew. That's what I like better than some diabolical person sent out invitations and so that he could take them to hell. That's overstating
Yeah.
what they wanted, but I still think that's a little different than what I was going for.
Right. Because if they were, there's some fundamental problems with them all being strangers at a birthday party.
Right.
First of all, because you'd have to be like the real kind of center of a wheel with everybody being a spoke. If your birthday party is a bunch of people who nobody knows except for you. Um, but yeah, like I think of, and I didn't see the movie, so maybe I'm wrong about this, but like that, there's that Shyamalan movie Devil, where it's
Stuck
like a
on the
bunch of
elevator. Yeah,
random
yeah.
people stuck in an elevator. Don't they not know each other? They're just like a bunch of randos in an elevator.
Right. But it turns
And
out
like,
one of them's the devil.
right. But then, so I'm going to tell you, have you watched that? Do you know the,
I don't remember. The only thing I remember from it is in the trailer, they're all on the elevator and the lights go out and the lights come back on and they're all holding knives. And I laughed. I just laughed out loud. Like that part was hilarious.
all right. So I think our naivete is going to be good in this scenario because like neither of us know the actual explanation, but I watched that trailer and I was like, oh, fuck this. They're all the devil. Like they're all the bad guy. And then someone kind of validated that for me. And I don't know if
Oh,
it's
I
actually
don't
like
remember
true or
the
not,
ending. Maybe they are.
but like, if that's true and I called it so quickly, I that's why I never watched the movie. So, but if I'm wrong, someone call me out. Cause
It
like people need
sounds
to
like a
call me on that
twist.
bullshit.
It sounds
Yeah.
like an M Night twist.
And maybe that's what it was. I was like, it's M. Night Shyamalan.
They're all the
Everybody's
devil.
expecting one person to be the devil. Wouldn't it make more sense if everybody was the devil? Yeah. So anyway, um, so yeah, no, I think the way that you had them kind of, but there was also kind of there's an overarching kind of ambiguity to a lot of the stuff in the story, but not in a way that frustrates people, or at least me as a reader, as far as like having a satisfying story. um, Ambiguity gives you license to tell the story the way that the story should be told, I think. So like, did this person know this person before? What was their relationship with? Sometimes like if they have a past, and
Yeah.
that past is or is not kind of accurate, whatever that story that's being told makes it, reinforces the overall kind of narrative, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
So thumbs up.
I appreciate that. There's definitely a having your cake and eating it too situation where if the more traditional structure of a book didn't sustain what fun I wanted to have, I just ignored it. And again, that might be to the detriment of it finding a bigger audience, but I think that fun is the name of the game. And I think there's fun. There's something fun about punishing people that have relatable, petty dramas. And I don't know, even if is somebody turning into a shark? Who's to say? Maybe they're just drunk. Uh, but what does the
but maybe
shark
not.
symbolize?
Right. um Couple things I want to acknowledge. First of all, I feel like there was a reference to, and I apologize for having not read this, but I'm going to play my cancer card. She was found in a guitar case. I have not read, but I feel like there was a reference to it in this book. Am I wrong about that, or am I right about
No,
that?
you are correct.
Awesome. Awesome.
Just in case if somebody publishes another book of mine, there might be a back alley trilogy going on where there are
Nice.
some people might show up in other things. Um,
It
I'll
was like a
just say that
flash. It was like
if
a
you,
sentence. It was like one sentence. It was super fast, but I caught it enough to know, like, yeah,
yeah, it
yeah.
was more than that, but it was flagged pretty quickly where the editor was like, "What's happening here? This is new. I
Okay.
didn't," and so I there's just enough to make it provocative by itself.
Hmm.
Um, but if you read "She was found in a guitar case," there may or may not be a fire truck zipping on by,
There you go.
or I actually don't remember, but there might be. I don't know. It's kind of like the Mad Max trilogy where actors keep playing different parts. So you'll see somebody show up in another Mad Max movie, but they're playing somebody else. Or like, what is it? Desperation and Regulators, where didn't Stephen King reshuffle the characters to do different things?
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Do you want to know what my recent, um, the one that's really bothering me where they did that is X-Files, where,
they brought in somebody from an old episode.
yeah, so no, like, so Alex Krycek, a very like crucial character to at least the earlier seasons, he originally, that actor originally showed up as a different character in a very early episode. So that actor has played someone else before playing Alex Krycek, and it drives me fucking crazy. It drives me
Dude.
crazy.
It's the X Files.
I know.
If
Well,
anybody's
yeah,
if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be the X
it's
Files.
going to be the X Files. I know.
I mean, that's the least of their concerns. They got fucking googly monsters in everybody's garbage can, and you're like, that guy, who's he trying to get away with? And then meanwhile, the
Yeah,
Loch Ness monster is over here driving a car. You're like, I've
and I
seen
don't
that guy
care. Yeah,
before.
I'm like, of course the Loch Ness monster is driving a car, but that's not Krycek. All right, the other thing I want to bring up about um, Shallow Ends is the presence of New York Times horror reviewer and author Gabino Iglesias.
Oh, Gabino's, yes,
Yeah.
he he helped
For
with a early version of this. I asked him to double check my Spanish.
nice.
So any complaints about the Spanish, send them to the New York Times.
Right to the New York Times,
Right to
yeah.
the New York Times. Um,
Um, but like people may not know, you guys are like buds. I remember back when we were in LA for I think it was AWP. Um, and you came down. There was like a whole booked and lit reactor party and everything. There was a ton of people. Gabino was there, but like he was like your bro. Like he was like staying with you guys and stuff. I think, or hanging out or something.
yes, he snores. He snores like an earthquake.
surprising no one. But yeah, like you and Gabino go back, and I'm assuming you guys are pretty good buds. Enough at least that he um is a character in this book.
Yeah, I guess I should point out that he's not. He did double check the Spanish, and also he's clearly one of the people. I mean, he's such a distinct looking guy
Yeah.
that it's kind of like catnip. Like, how do you not just say,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna describe this guy who's,
That
you
I
know,
100%, especially for you, because so like Gabino's thing, for anybody who doesn't know what Gabino Iglesias looks like, he looks like the most muscular man that's ever existed. And for anybody who doesn't know what David James Keaton looks like, he looks like a normal muscular man. so so Gabino is like the cartoonish, like exaggerated version of what David looks like, but maybe a little shorter.
well, I'll find.
Um,
There's actually a picture I'll send you of when we went to Alcatraz, and we kind of dressed similar because we are wearing similar hoodies. So I guess to speak to your theory, I think that's the day when we arm wrestled.
oh
We
no.
arm wrestled one of those mechanical arm wrestling machines, and it was at the Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
So Alcatraz was in the distance, but there's like one of those old timey robot arm wrestlings, and I did it, and it tells you how strong you are or whatever, and then he did it, and just be like you said, because he has a distinct appearance,
Yeah.
especially if he rolls up his sleeve, that when he started to arm wrestle this robot, a crowd, no shit, gathered. They were like, "Is he gonna stop the robot uprising in front of us?" So strangers gathered around to see. Well, they brought in this uh, Hispanic power lifter he had his sideburns. I think at the time he was a very
Yep.
distinct looking
Yep.
character.
Yeah, yeah.
And people were like, they must be, is this a show? Are they going to make a show about somebody conquering this device? But it was just him. But he does have a distinct look. And
Yeah.
especially when he's battling robots. Um,
Well, here's what I'll say about what I know about arm wrestling is what you look like does not equivalate to being good at arm
it's
wrestling. I had a
true. But
friend.
now also he drinks, I don't know if you remember, he was big into drinking milk back with a lot of these readings. He would, Gambino would just bust out a tall glass of milk and just, and
Just pound it, huh?
which I guess was part of his weightlifting regime. So, spoiler alert: this book has a milk subplot. There is
There's some milk going on in this
there
book.
is a
Yeah.
lot of milk going on, and not just as a way of like, okay, this character drinks milk. The milk kind of reveals something later on as far as were they going in circles or not,
Yeah.
which is you know how long can you go in a straight line, but if you just went into a circle. Anyway, so yeah,
Anyway.
milk is part of it.
And Gabino is immortalized as Godzooky.
Yeah.
Um,
Whether he
pretty.
whether he likes it or not, he's in there.
He doesn't have a choice.
Yeah, not up to me. It's not up to him, but it's not up to me either.
It's out of your yeah. It's out of everybody's hands. It's all in our imaginations now. You have no control over what our imaginations do with this story.
He's a big guy, but this was bigger than both of us.
Yeah, I told. That's a great kind of transition, and this might end up being an after party thing. So like if the listeners don't hear this part, it's because it ended up being too much of a spoiler.
I don't envy
party.
your editing that you have to do later.
Oh, I've been doing this for 13 years. I can edit in my sleep. I feel like at certain points there was almost a magical realism, kind of bigger cosmic kind of approach to some of the thoughts about the book. And my curiosity was, is there a deeper thought to like, and I'll point to two specific things, kind of like how the book ends, where this is probably after party stuff, where the truck finally stops, kind of feels a little bit bigger, like a little more cosmic. But there's also the part with the kind of giant translucent sand flea situation.
Yeah.
That kind of feel a little more cosmic, not necessarily supernatural, but like transitioning from reality to concept in a little bit. Does that make sense? So I was wondering what your thoughts are about like those kinds of stuff, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think
Was there a bigger message behind it, or that just kind of fit? And there was also drugs involved, so we can leave it up to like that was the LSD, but
yeah,
curious
I
to
mean
see.
that's talk about a cheat. I wanted these things to happen, but I wanted there to be there is some some deniability.
Yeah.
Are they under the influence of somebody in the swimming pool had some tabs of acid in their back pocket, which adds to the stew, adds to the wonton soup of gross shit that they're now swimming in. And maybe that's influencing what they're saying and what they're remembering and what actually happened. But I mean, all those things are excuses for me to. I wish that there was a world where those things didn't have to be supernatural, that somebody could
Yeah.
have an encounter with a giant water flea as part of their day, and that's why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
Whether it's hallucinations due to whatever is on his body at the time or whatever. What's fun about that shark story, just a quick interlude, is that it's based on when I moved to California. Santa Cruz has a problem with localism. It has a problem with people claiming beaches and attacking tourists, and it's a real thing down here. And
I feel like that was satirized in the later Arrested Development
Really?
seasons, like
Oh.
with Did you watch Arrested Development at all?
The reboot.
The fifth season.
I
So like
did,
the
but I didn't.
final
It
season.
didn't stick with me. It just had a.
So Dermot Mulroney was on there as like a lawyer, but he was also like a local beach guy who like he was like a local guy who
I do kind of remember
him
that.
him and his aging buddies would scare people off of their part of the beach because it was like their crew that like so I feel like that's the vibe I was getting. That's the dumb reference I was getting because that's all I know is like the Arrested
Oh, it's
Development
real.
satirization of that.
So here's what I was going to show you. As a present, Amy got me this to celebrate the publication. How perfect is this? It's almost looks like it was created as swag for the book. So it's a coffee cup that
Oh,
says
nice.
Santa Cruz on it, and then
Nice.
I don't know
Oh,
if
that's so good.
it's got a shark fin. It's clearly
Fucking
addressing the
perfect.
surfing situation, but it has a
Yeah.
shark fin on it. It's also one of those coffee cups that has the blue inside.
Oh, nice. That's
I think
fancy.
that's fancy. But yeah, couldn't have asked for a more thematic connection there.
I'll point out that the area um, in the book is called Santa Carla,
Yes.
which is kind of like Santa Clara,
Yes.
maybe.
Santa Carla from you get the reference? The Lost Boys?
No. Oh, is that why it was called Santa Carla?
Yes. Because
That's me being dumb because I haven't seen Lost Boys in a long time, but noticed references, right? There were references in the book to Lost Boys for sure, right?
yeah, which was kind of frustrating during the editing process because they flagged every instance of that, and there were lots of notes in the margin saying, "You must be thinking of Santa Clara,"
Oh, yep.
and it's like, no, I'm thinking of Santa Cruz, which is
Right.
where Lost Boys was filmed, but they called it Santa Carla, not Santa Clara. And they even have the big sign, if you remember in Lost Boys, it says, "Welcome to Santa Carla, murder capital of the world." So it's just a big, nerdy Lost Boys reference that I'm.
I'm due a rewatching of Lost Boys because it's fantastic, but also because of that fucking oiled up saxophone guy. Like, if for no other reason,
Yeah,
that guy. And I've mentioned it to people, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I feel like some people have like a blind spot for the
I don't
oiled up
understand how you
saxophone guy.
could. They showed it when we
And
moved here. They showed it on the beach. They show every year. They show it on a screen on the beach, and people are pretty excited about the Lost Boys because it's filmed right there on the boardwalk in Santa
yep,
Cruz.
yep.
But when it gets to the saxophone and it's "I still believe," the fucking crowd on that beach goes crazy. Like they love that guy.
That's awesome.
He's more famous than the vampires in that movie.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, I think it's because it's so conspicuous. Like, there's no reason for it, right? There's
Yeah, I
nothing
think it's
like
just
it's just what it is. But
there's
like, it's
probably a
like,
story for why. I mean, that guy is Tina Turner's saxophonist, and if you watch those old Tina Turner videos, he was always featured heavily because he's got like Gabino size arms on that
yeah,
saxophone. So
he looks like a WWF wrestler.
oh, he's
Like, but
huge.
like,
So he was
yeah,
kind of it was kind of a gimmick. He was most musicians kind of have that serpentine kind of body, and he was beefy. He was like a
he's
tank.
buff as fuck. Yeah.
So I think it just made for a good visual. I don't know the exact story of that, but yeah, the Santa Cruz, Santa Clara, Santa Carla amalgam of where it takes place is I think important to the story, even though there is a Midwestern feel to the book, I think, but
Yeah.
also some of the backstories talk shit about California in a way that I think will resonate with anybody who's dealt with the local surf community. Um, but the like the stealing dollar bills off the bar, that is right next to campus here at Santa Clara. There is a bar with dollar bills all over it that we frequent, especially when school's in session. And I just look around at all those dollars and think, how much is that? And
Yeah.
why has no one ever tried this heist? It seems like a It would be a labor heavy heist, but also an immediate satisfaction. The kind of, I don't know, the way you open presents, that you could peel all those dollar bills off the wall. But yeah, that's all
so
Santa Clara lore.
so in the book though, that the reason they're hanging up their dollar bills is like it's people who like it's the first dollar they earned at their job after getting out of college.
Right.
Is that the reason it happens in the
The
real
real world.
situation?
Yep. Yeah, and that's what's
That's so
funny about it,
weird.
because I also was feeling kind of class warrior when I was looking at it, because they were pinning their dollar bills usually with the business card of their first job. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking, you got a business card with your first job, you lucky little fuck.
Right.
Like I had to
Yeah.
go, I had 10 jobs in and I'm still, washing dishes. Like,
Right.
how's your first job have a business card? So
Right.
I put that
Yeah.
little
There's a
bit
little
of
privilege in there.
self righteous class warrior shits in there.
So I've never been to a dollar bill bar like that, but I have been to in Alaska. I was in um, a bra hanging bar.
Huh. That's a difference.
So
Those are worth more than a
um,
dollar.
that's what I was thinking. Like if I pulled off the bra heist in Alaska, first of all, not a lot of people in Alaska. This was like a kind of highway side bar. And I was definitely like probably 12. My father lived in Alaska. We went up to visit him, and this was like a place between where we started and where we were going, like to stop for, you know, whatever, the lunch or whatever. But it was a bar that he'd definitely been to before. And maybe because of the bras, I don't know. But like women would take their bras off and they would hang them. There was hundreds, hundreds
That
of
is a
bras.
much more lucrative heist.
I know, because like you could just start like a resale thing. Like I'm just going to
Yeah.
sell some brasiers, and they're probably like, because if you're like bringing your bra to the bar, maybe you wear the fancy one because you want it to
Yeah.
look
And
good
who's to
hanging from
say, we
a.
don't know what they're made of. It could be, didn't they used to, people would donate their underwear to make parachutes for the war effort? Or is that just a dream I had? Like, who
Is that
knows what,
apocryphal?
yeah, bras might be made out of something that you could, can you melt them down and make a car out of them?
I don't
It's,
know. It's a very I don't. That would be a really weird AIDS quilt, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
oh
But
shit. Oh, I just
Let's
think,
get this party started. Right
so what's going to
now.
happen is that's never going to turn off again, and you're in your own hell.
yeah,
That's
this,
what.
that would be tough, because
Yeah.
when my daughter starts playing with this, it never stops. Yeah, yeah.
um, Here's the thing. I'm going to say in exactly what I would expect from an interaction with you. There was twists and turns. I don't really fully understand everything that happened,
Me neither.
but I just want to kind of wrap up talking about the book by saying that when you read a book by David James Keaton, um, uh, I feel like it's important to know that sometimes it's okay to really not understand what's going on, but that's not the important part. And especially at the beginning of the book, I feel like you nailed the beginning of the book so well, where the individual kind of like things that were going on from the perspective of the characters were so like punchy and cool and fun that it really buys you into this story. So even if like you're listening to our conversation and you're like, what the fuck is going on with this story? It's a great story. And one of the I think the biggest things about your writing, David, that I really appreciate is that um, the relatability thing that I said earlier, but also like your style of writing is just so like I want to go along for the ride. Is kind of how I feel when I start reading your stuff. So that like whenever a new book of yours comes out, I'm like, oh, it's been a while since I read David. Oh yeah, this is a David James Keaton story, because it just sucks you into um, whatever kind of mad ride you're about to go on. And if anybody's listening, you can go back to the very first episode of this podcast with me and David and Tony McMillan, where we talked about Head Cleaner. And I feel like Tony did a great job of kind of expressing some of the things that you're really good at as far as a writer goes. but you're one of my favorite people because you're so fucking smart. But regardless, in the middle, it's so entertaining and so fun to take the ride. If that makes sense. I know I kind of went off on a
No,
tangent there, but
I like how it makes me sound like uh, smart person taking the low road, literally taking the low road.
but in a good, in like the best way. In the best way. Does that make sense?
Like
That,
more Jackass 2 than Jackass the series.
I don't understand the reference, but I'm going to go with it. But like, there's a reason that I go back and I listen to those same booked episodes over and over again. It's because like there's something about it that like I just want, that I want to hear, and it's like um, it's kind of it's kind of a simultaneous criticism of everything, but like a weird cynical hopefulness that I don't really know exactly how to encapsulate. But like, yeah, there's just like there's something there that it really kind of pulls you in.
I appreciate that. You got a lot of good pull quotes right there. A cynical hopefulness. I think that I can use that.
Yeah,
I can use that on a
yeah.
book somewhere.
I don't know.
I'm gonna yoink those words. No, I love it, dude. I'm glad it connects with you. Like if there was, I just need about a million more Robs out there to
Yeah.
find to find the book.
I mean, Stephen Graham Jones is raving about it, so like, what more does a reader want than that, right?
Yeah, I did you. You're the one who sent me that. He solved head tilts in his
I
slasher book.
did. Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
man,
Yeah.
that's
Because like I know that there's things that I know about you, and it's like you're obsessed with the head tilt, you're obsessed with the decompression shower.
yeah.
So if I see anything like that, I'm sending it right to
I
you.
feel like that wasn't. I think we're on the same wavelength with the head tilts. I can't. I haven't read Teenage Slasher yet, but yeah,
Dude,
I felt
the thing
seen.
the thing you would love about I Was a Teenage Slasher was he basically explains everything that doesn't make sense in a slasher movie. He like gives a reason why it's happening.
That's amazing. That's
So
amazing. Like
yeah,
that's the good stuff.
it's
That's the new shit. That's the good stuff.
he's doing the Lord's work, I
He
guess.
is.
David, thank you so much. I wish you had a
Yeah.
book come out every week so we could just continuously talk about stuff. Um, but yeah, thanks for the awesome book, and thanks for chatting with me
Yeah, man. It's
and
always
navigating our audio problems, I guess.
our audio problems, and it was a little bit of rough road, but yeah, I like the down memory lane. It
Yeah.
was an interesting swervy tour down memory lane. Whether those end up in the after dark part of your show or not, it's always great reminiscing. We should do yeah, we'll do one before the. Well, you got to hurry up and do 50 more episodes, and I'll do the 101st episode.
Well, let me know if you're interested in talking about Justified, because I'm trying to get a bunch of people together to talk about the TV show Justified.
I'm always down. I've only watched about 3 episodes of that, but I've meant to go back. I
Well,
watched up until somebody shot a bazooka. That's all I remember.
that's the first episode, man. That's like 3 minutes in.
Oh shit!
All right, David.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you go do your family stuff.
All right, man.
And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
All right, see you, man. Good to see you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.